What's up, guys? It's the Real Bender here to talk about why the future Star Wars movie cannot ignore the prequels. Well, it's no secret that the Star Wars prequels are everyone's favorite movies. I personally really like them. I know a lot of people don't. I personally like them. Everyone, episodes 1, 2, through 3 are so hated upon that it's hard to find any Star Wars related source material where dialogue doesn't take a jab at to discredit George Lucas and the prequels. The prequel hatred can be so complete that even before the release of The Force Awakens, there were calls for some fans to either decanonize the prequels altogether. Yeah, like it was, or at least ignore them in future movies development of the Star Wars content. After The Force Awakens, many were quick to praise J.J. Abrams for disregarding the prequels entirely. They urged Disney to follow this perceived pattern moving forward and rely solely on the original trilogy nostalgia, fuel the franchise. The fact that the entirety of Lucasfilm's current slate, Rogue One, a Han Solo spinoff, a Boba Fett spinoff, in addition to 8 and 9, are all stem from characters and events in the original trilogy, only perpetuates that perspective. The thing is, regardless of fans' perception of the prequels, they're essentially part of the Star Wars saga, and they aren't going anywhere. For one, The Force Awakens actually does have prequel ties. First thing first, while The Force Awakens was packed full of original trilogy nostalgia, it didn't actually ignore the prequels, as some have claimed, be it power wrestling flags outside of Maz Kanata's palace, or Lord San Tekka's, or what was his name? Yeah, Lord San Tekka's reference to the balance of the Force. Nubian Senator Kylo's reference to the Clone Army. Clear similarities between Anakin and Kylo Ren. Prequels are alive and well in The Force Awakens. The prequel callbacks were questionably more subtle than the original trilogy references. Just any battle droids or Trade Federation or pirate races. Kylo Ren has an obsession with Darth Vader, and Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber is a central element in the film. The name Anakin is even mentioned once. Pretty sure that's going to change in 8 and 9 when Luke comes into play. So I'm pretty sure we'll start hearing Anakin. The structure of the Star Wars saga enhances multi-trilogy storytelling. George Lucas has always compared the Star Wars saga to poetry. It's even become a bit of a meme with Star Wars fans who mock certain elements of the story by saying it's like poetry or the rhymes. The Star Wars movies all follow the same structure. It means its themes are constantly playing and replaying in inverse loops. Each stanza flips the script and repeats the major things in variation to tell the story. This is a style incredibly prominent in the ancient epic poetry like the Odyssey. There are many deliberate shot-by-shot similarities between both scenes, as well as some striking differences. Both characters are forced to face their fears and meet their dark side. Luke's vision concludes with him seeing his own face behind Darth Vader's helmet, while Anakin casts a shadow that portrays the silhouette of Vader. Path the father and son follow toward the dark side also comes to a fork in a nearly identical matter as well. Having removed the hands of Palpatine apprentice, Palpatine directs him to finish the job. Anakin complies, decapitating Dooku. But Luke does the opposite route. He throws his lightsaber away, which refuses to strike down his father, breaking the parallel, demonstrating compassion that ultimately leads to Vader to commit to his own redeeming sacrifice. Kylo Ren's story is deeply rooted and played off Anakin's. One of the key parts of Kylo Ren's character is his worship of Darth Vader. This idolation doesn't merely extend to the Vader we know from the original trilogy. Ren sees himself as the heir of Anakin Skywalker's entire legacy, not just his time in the black armor. This is evidenced by the fact that he desires artifacts of the pre-Vader Anakin, and not just Vader's mask. When he sees Rey with his grandfather's lightsaber, his reaction is to yell, "That saber is mine." The Phantom Menace, Yoda tells Anakin that fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. This is the path to the dark side, and these very emotions are realized by Ren. In the same order on screen is the exact same arc Anakin walks in the prequels, specifically Revenge of the Sith, but also throughout the entire trilogy. Without the foundation laid by the prequels, the path by Kylo Ren, while still quite dramatic, holds less gravity. It bears more weight when you see him walking the same path as Anakin Skywalker. The prequels' portrayal of the Jedi is central to Luke's story in the sequels. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan speaks of a Jedi Order that has served as the guardians of peace and justice for 1,000 generations. It suggested that the fall of Jedi was due simply to the rise of the Empire. Darth Vader came in like a wrecking ball and wiped them out, like most things coming from the lips of Obi-Wan. It's true from a certain point of view. More a look at the fall of the Jedi provided by the prequel show a flawed order that failed on its mission, allowed the seeds of the Empire to germinate under their very noses. Jedi had grown arrogant and lazy and allowed themselves to become politically subservient to the Old Republic, and thus politically subservient to Palpatine. When the Civil War threatens the galaxy, Jedi wrongfully assumed the role of leading the Republic military during the Clone Wars. This decision only serves to increase the influence of Chancellor Palpatine and seals their own fate. In The Empire Strikes Back, it tells Luke that wars not make one great. It originally came up as a sort of cheeky quip, but with the added context of the prequel trilogy adds a much sadder and more dramatic layer. We're seeing the realizations that the former Grandmaster had come to in his 2 decades of reflection on his failure as the head of the Jedi Order. The Jedi have another chance with Luke. However, after returning to the Jedi, he takes on the responsibility of reestablishing the Order. It takes Kylo Ren as an apprentice. He slaughtered dozens of students, became the master of the Knights of Ren, and joined up with the First Order. After this, Luke, like Obi-Wan Yoda before him, went into exile. Star Wars chronicles a galactic history, and history repeats itself. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, George Lucas has always conceived Star Wars as sort of ancient history being chronicled by beings called the Wills. The phrase that's taken from the Journal of Wills even appeared as subtle to nearly every iteration of the original Star Wars A New Hope screenplay until 1995. The Journal of the Wills is now canon due to a reference in the novelization for The Force Awakens. All of this happened before, and it will happen again, maybe a line from Battlestar Galactica, but it fits here just as well. History repeats itself, and Star Wars is no different. Star Wars Force Awakens drew a lot of flack for this perception some of it had that was a rip-off from New Hope. That's only part of the story. It has just as much, if not more, in common with the Phantom Menace, because the Phantom Menace and the New Hope share parallel stories. This is what will continue to give the rate is the Skywalker theory's fuel until the movies can officially confirm or deny it. There's an element of repetition, just like music. That repetition is ascended by iteration. Luke's story matches Anakin's until it doesn't. The prequels perform the world building, heavy lifting. The prequels laid the foundation for the true scale of the galaxy, although the original trilogy did a good job with this in many aspects as well. Most obviously, Cantina and Jabba's palace showed a sampling of the numerous species that exist throughout the galaxy. The sequels could easily adopt prequel world building, yet it still expand on the style of the originals. For example, The Phantom Menace spends a lot of time establishing the relationship between Naboo and the Trade Federation. However, Empire Strikes Back uses just a few simple lines of dialogue from Lando to explain that that Cloud City is fortunate to be small enough not to be noticed by the Empire Mining Guild. Trusting the viewer to understand that there are trade guilds throughout the Star Wars galaxy, and Lando doesn't want their attention. The prequels portray a galaxy that's home to thousands of species representing just as many systems, and those are just the systems that are part of the Republic. The majority of Star Wars lore is from the prequels. Outside of world building, most of the lore of Star Wars actually comes from the prequels. Prophecy of the Chosen One, the Jedi Council, the Sith, the Rule of Two, for example, are all the concepts that were brought to life through the prequels. Some of them meet you via the expanded universe stuff, but those aren't canon. As mentioned earlier, the general way the prequels established lore points a finger more to the style than the actual substance. Even so, most of what's typically considered controversial lore is unnecessary even in any universe this large. The Force can only be described as a mystical energy field with some vague spirituality jargon for so long before the mythology starts to get stretched in, necessitating a deeper dive. This is the case for any franchise, especially anything that falls under the sci-fi fantasy umbrella. The longer any story goes on, the more necessary it becomes to get solid explanations for any universe machinations, be it the Speed Force, the effects of a yellow sun, the X-Gene, or midichlorians. Unfortunately, the introduction of some lore, midichlorians happened in a way many fans didn't accept as really as Flash fans accept the Speed Force, where X-Men have accepted the X-Gene. However, that still doesn't change the fact that explanation was inevitable eventually. Hopefully that's the era future movies can expand in a way that fans might more plausible. New Star Wars canon comics and novels are full of prequel ties. Anyone that doesn't follow Star Wars outside of movies and didn't notice a prequel connection to The Force Awakens could understandably think that the prequels are not factored in this new Star Wars canon, but that perspective can be further from the truth. All new canonical material outside The Force Awakens is permitted with prequel ties. The Star Wars Rebels animated series might be the most prominent example, but many other books and comics either take place during the prequel era, reference prequel events, or follow characters introduced in the prequels. Whereas Darth Vader thinking of Padme, Luke discovering old Jedi temples, clone troopers appearing in the ranks of stormtroopers, Leia visiting Naboo, or Snap building a bodyguard of an old battle droid. The prequels are alive and well in new Star Wars canon, seeing these same ties stretch into a live action will only serve to make Star Wars universe even more cohesive and well formed. Ignoring the prequels alienates an entire generation of fans. Finally, we had the issue of fan alienation. Many Star Wars fans like to act like the entire fan base was there on May 25th, 1977, and lived in several decades of pure Star Wars bliss before George Lucas swept in it, ruined their childhoods with the prequels. That's obviously not the case. First of all, not all the fans were there in 1977 felt that way. There are many who also enjoyed the prequels. Second, the Phantom Menace came out over a decade and a half ago. There's an entire generation of fans that love Star Wars and were introduced via the prequels, like me, or Rebels and Clone Wars. Many of these fans view the prequels with just as much nostalgia as the older generation fans view the original trilogy. Of course, that older generation also dismisses these fans, suggesting that younger generation of Star Wars lovers aren't real fans. The Force Awakens may have positioned themselves to win back those older fan base that were deluded by the prequels. But only in a few short years, the majority of the fan population will be populated by these fake fans, come to love Star Wars through the prequels and its animated shows. That generation is not going to be ignored. That doesn't mean the older generation will be swept to the side. However, as mentioned above, there are many ways to include prequel era references and newer canon in a way that embodies the style and tone of the original trilogy. All Star Wars fans can be winners here, regardless of what Star Wars they love the most. At the end of the day, some Star Wars movies will be better than others. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. That doesn't mean the movies that some fans consider inferior should or could be discarded. The Star Wars saga has little something for everyone. Fans should spend their efforts seeking out praising their favorite elements and not trying to eject their least favorite from canon. After all, only a Sith deals in absolutes. That's it for me, guys. What about you guys? What do you guys think about? Should they leave the prequels alone? Should they really include them more? Let me know in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace. Deuces.